If you're betting NHL playoffs the same way you bet the regular season, you're already behind because playoff hockey is a completely different game. You have lower scoring, tighter margins, and one or two moments that decide everything. So today, we're breaking down the exact 5 factors that actually win playoff series and how you can use them to find real betting value. All right, coming in at number 5 is going to be depth scoring. This is one of the most misunderstood factors in playoff hockey. So when the playoffs start, top lines don't just run free anymore. They get matched, they get targeted, and then they kind of get taken away. That means scoring has to come from somewhere else. So it's not about how good your best players are, it's about who can still score when those players are neutralized. So you start to see third line stepping up, defensemen getting involved offensively, and those timely goals from role players that end up deciding tight games. And that really matters, because in the playoffs, clean scoring chances are very, very limited. Games are tighter, and you need offense coming from multiple sources. Now, from a betting and evaluation standpoint, what we're looking for is very simple. How much production is coming outside of the top line? So that's going to include things like secondary scoring percentage, even strength depth production, and then in this case, we're using plus minus from lines 2 through 4 to measure that impact in the next slide. So let's get to the top 5 teams that have depth scoring going into the playoffs. Now, looking at the top teams here, we have Ottawa, Carolina, Colorado, Vegas, and Pittsburgh. And these are the teams that are getting consistent production throughout their lineup. So not just from line 1, but lines 2 through 4. And that's exactly the type of profile that can win you playoff games when things start to get tight. So if you guys like this type of NHL betting breakdown, hit that like button and we'll keep these type of videos coming. Coming in at number 4 is going to be physicality. And this is where playoff hockey really starts to separate teams. The game slows down, space disappears, and everything becomes more of a grind. So you're seeing more board battles, more net front traffic, and teams that can take contact and then also give it right back. And this isn't just about hitting for the sake of it, it's about controlling the game. Because the more physical team usually controls possession, spends more time in the offensive zone, and over a 6 or 7 game series, they start to wear teams down. That's why this is going to matter. So, possessions are harder to win. Time in the offensive zone becomes much more critical. And if you can't handle that level of contact, you're not going to be surviving full series. So, from an evaluation standpoint, what we look at are things like hits per game, hit differential is a huge one for us, blocked shots, and even how often teams are drawing penalties from that pressure. Those are going to be the stats that I would look at the most. Also, Corsi for percentage, that's going to show you possession. And possession in terms of the playoffs, it has really good results when you're looking at teams who can wear down their opponent. Now let's get into the teams that are top going into the playoffs for that specific factor of physicality. We're talking about teams like Minnesota. Minnesota, they have the best hit differential of all the teams in the field. Philly, they're very high in terms of their hit rate without taking too many penalties, too. So they're very, very aggressive while staying out of the box. Anaheim, they're the same as Philadelphia, but they go to the box a little bit more than Philly, so that's what ranks them a little bit lower. Ottawa also has a high hits per game, really, really high. I would say second in amongst the teams that are remaining in the field. And then Boston, they're about second in hits per game as well, but with a lot of block shots. So these are the teams that consistently bring that physical edge and can dictate how the game is played. And that's going to be the key, right? Because in the playoffs, if you can't handle that style, you're not going to advance. So if you're into this type of unbiased handicapping, make sure you subscribe to Grandstand Sports Data. This is what we do here on a consistent basis. Now, coming in at number 3 is going to be special teams. And this is where playoff hockey games are often decided, right? Because once you get into the postseason, games tighten up. We've been mentioning that throughout this video, and there are fewer even strength goals, more one goal games. And every power play starts to carry some real weight or significance. So it's not just about having a good power play or a penalty kill on paper, though. It's about how those units match up against your opponent. Can your power play create real scoring chances? Can your penalty kill hold up on under pressure, right? And most importantly, are you disciplined enough to not put yourself in bad spots or put yourself in the box? So that's why this is going to matter. In tight playoff games, though, one or two special teams goals can completely swing momentum. In a lot of cases, that's the difference between winning and losing a series. So, from a betting and evaluation standpoint, we're looking at things like power play percentage, penalty kill percentage, but also expected goals on both sides, you want to know, and overall net special teams ratings. Those are going to be very, very important going into the playoffs. Now, let's look at the top teams that satisfied that special teams factor. I'm going to start with number one, which is Dallas. They don't take or commit a lot of penalties, but when their special teams are out there, they are very, very productive, probably the best of the field. Edmonton, best power play by a landslide with the best power play percentage and best expected goals for on the power play. Their penalty kill keeps them from being number one here because it's not exactly the worst, but their power play is so good that the net rating for their special teams becomes really good, even though they're not well balanced. Speaking of balance, Las Vegas is very balanced on both sides. Pittsburgh comes in at number four. Their expected goals against in terms of their penalty kill is insanely low, mixed with the average power play, because they do have an average power play, but having a really good penalty kill really takes them into this top five territory. And then we have Minnesota rounding out here. No real weakness in any category that we mentioned, but they're not a juggernaut neither in any category. And that spots them at five. So these are the teams that have the ability to create and prevent goals in those high leverage situations. And in the playoffs, that is a massive edge, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so coming in at number two is going to be defensive structure and coaching. So this is where playoff hockey really starts to shift. It's no longer about just playing your game, it's about controlling your opponent's game. So you start to see tighter defensive structure, fewer high quality chances, and teams focusing on taking away what the other side does best. And over a 7 game series, that's where coaching becomes a major factor. So matchups usually get adjusted, defensive pairings start to change, and systems start to tighten up. And that's, the teams that can adapt game to game are usually the ones that end up winning. So clean scoring chances become much harder to find in the playoffs. Games start to slow down and structure starts dictating everything. So at that point, it's not about who's more talented, it's about who can execute, adjust, and stay disciplined within their system. So, from a betting and evaluation standpoint, we're focused heavily on metrics like expected goals against, high danger chances allowed, too, is another one, and then overall ability to suppress quality looks. So, that is the most important, not just the volume, but that's what we're looking at here. Let's jump into the top five teams with the best defensive structure mixed with coaching. And those five teams here are going to be Colorado to start off. Their expected goals against is insanely low, under 2 goals against per game on the five verse five, which is huge. It's probably one of the best that we've seen. Colorado, they're a huge juggernaut. We all know it, right? Number two, very close to Colorado, though, is Dallas, but does not control possession like Colorado. So it's a little bit hard to say or to put them up there. So I would say that there is a gap from 1 to 2. Tampa Bay comes in at number three, so they let up the least high danger chances of the entire field. That's something to take a look at. Philadelphia, great in every single category, but not elite. And then we have Carolina. They just control the puck much more than any other team. That, with those limited chances, it's going to be so hard to score on them because their possession numbers are crazy. Uh, in the playoffs, though, that's how you control the games. So before we get into number one, the number one factor, I'm curious where you guys stand. Which of these factors do you weigh the most or will be weighing the most? Or just simply who's going to be winning the Stanley Cup in your eyes? All right, number one is going to be goaltending. And this is the most important factor in playoff hockey, and it's not even close, ladies and gentlemen. Everything tightens up in the playoffs. We've been saying it for the last, 12 minutes. Fewer clean looks, more pressure situations, and that puts everything on who? The goalie. Because when chances are limited, one player can completely swing a series in either a good way or a bad way. But that's the reality here, right? A hot goalie can steal games and steal an entire series. even if their team isn't the better team on paper. And that's why this matters so much. Those high danger saves become more critical. The consistency matters more than the highlight plays. And then also composure in big moments separates good goalies from playoff difference makers. That's what I would say. So from a betting and evaluation standpoint, though, we're not just looking at save percentage. That's just going to mislead you. We're focused on high danger save percentage, goals saved above expected. Those are going to be the two most crucial ones. Also, quality start percentage I like to look at, and then also look at a goalie's playoff history. If he consistently craps his pants, you got to be careful of that. If he's consistently, putting out great performances according to his quality start percentage, then you might want to take a closer look on that team and that goaltender. All right, so let's get to the top 5 teams in terms of the factor of goaltending. And number 1 is going to be Tampa. Tampa, they have the best goalie in the field. That's from the stats that we had showed you in the last slide being translated. So you're talking about Vasilevsky with great playoff metrics for his history, and then along with a regular season this year with elite advanced metrics. So Vasilevsky, number 1, clear across the board here. Number 2, maybe a little bit of a surprise to people, but Swayman. Swayman's advanced metrics for both the regular season or this regular season and his playoff career absolutely through the roof. There's no question here. 1, Vasilevsky, 2, Swayman when you're looking at advanced metrics. Remember, advanced metrics. Colorado comes in at number 3. The room as a whole could be number 1 based on the regular season advanced metrics, but their playoff numbers are very, very shaky. So just keep an eye out for that in their 2 goaltenders. I call them the Woods. You just got to watch out for them. Buffalo, great regular season performance by both goalies, but question marks for the playoffs. And when I say question marks, there's just not much experience there. Next would be Dallas. They're rounding it off at number 5. Ottinger steps up his game in the playoffs, no question about it, and has a winning record of over 60 game sample in the playoffs. So he's a guy that has, I would I would say loosely proven success because he is doing his part in the playoffs. Says his team has not got over that hump. So these are the teams that are either elite starters or strong tandems that can carry them through series. That's the most important part of this. And when you get to this level, that's usually going to be the difference between a team hoisting the cup and not hoisting the cup. Okay, so that's going to be your NHL betting factors blueprint here. We have the depth, the physicality, coaching, special teams, and don't forget the goaltending. That's how you separate good teams from teams built to win in the playoffs. So, like if you want more NHL betting content, subscribe to the channel for unbiased sports handicapping and real analysis. Also, comment your top factor or who do you think will win the cup. And if you got real value from this, a super thanks down below is always appreciated. It's like buying us a coffee for the hard work that we put in. We appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.